Have you ever sat in silence late at night and thought about your parents? Not because it's Mother's Day or Father's Day, not because you were flipping through old photos, but simply because life suddenly felt too heavy? Maybe you're stressed about rent. Maybe your heart just got broken. Maybe the world is just too much. And in that moment, you remember your mom's hands, tired but gentle, your dad's old sweater with the scent of wood and cigarettes. You remember them saying, "It'll be okay," even though they weren't so sure themselves. This is a story about them, about love that doesn't show off, about quiet strength that carried an entire family without ever asking for a thank you, about the sacred, silent sacrifices of a mother and a father. And maybe it's your story too. I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas, a dusty town where summers burned your skin and winters chilled you to the bone. Life wasn't fancy there. No luxurious vacations, no brand name clothes, just meatloaf every Sunday night and Christmas lights that we reused for a decade. My mom, Linda Mae Parker, was small in size but carried a superhuman strength. Every morning she worked at the Dollar General. Every evening she made spaghetti, maybe to ease her own exhaustion. She had a special laugh, warm and round, that could melt even the worst days. We didn't have much, but somehow with Mom it felt like we had everything. I still remember one Christmas when I was 8. I asked for a bicycle, even though deep down I knew we couldn't afford it. But that morning, there it was, bright red, right by our worn-out old sofa. I screamed with joy. Years later, I found out my mom had taken on extra night shifts, cleaning houses for 2 months, just to buy me that bike. She never said a word, no complaints, no guilt tripping. She never asked, "Do you know what I gave up for you?" Because that's just who she was, a woman who gave everything and still smiled. My dad, James Robert Parker, was a quiet man. He worked in construction, left before dawn, came home after dark. Rain or shine, always working. His hands were calloused, his back curved over the years. He wasn't the "I love you" type, no bedtime stories, no sweet hugs. But he was the one who checked the doors every night, who made sure the car had gas, who showed up at every school recital, even though I sang horribly, and sat in the front row without ever missing one. I remember when I was 12, I fell from a tree and broke my arm. Dad didn't panic. He quietly grabbed a towel, wrapped it around my arm, and drove me to the hospital in our old Chevy. He stayed beside me all night, didn't say much. But when the doctor reset my bone, I remember his hand squeezing mine tightly. That's how he loved, quietly, silently, but with a depth that shook the soul. Youth is when we forget who's always been there for us. Like most teenagers, I was selfish. Thought I knew everything. Rolled my eyes when Mom reminded me to bring a jacket. Sighed when Dad asked about school. I didn't see her swollen feet after long shifts. Didn't know Dad skipped lunch to save up for my textbooks. I thought love was grand gestures, sweet words, big presents. But I missed the tiny, heroic things they did for me every single day. I remember in my senior year I begged to rent a tux for prom. I knew we didn't have the money, but I kept asking, and one day the tux was hanging in my room. Later I found out Mom had pawned her wedding ring to pay for it. I didn't even say thank you. Then came college. I left like a rocket. Wanted to go far, dream big. I never looked back. I called home once a week, sometimes less. Mom always asked, "Are you eating enough? Sleeping okay?" Dad got on for 30 seconds, "Keep your head straight." I didn't pay much attention. I was busy building my future. But whenever I needed anything, tuition shortfall, car broke down, they helped. No judgment, no lectures, just, "We'll figure it out." Later I learned how they figured it out. By eating instant noodles for a month. Dad sold his tools. Mom dipped into their retirement savings. Then one day, the phone rang. It was a Thursday. I was 26, living in Chicago. Mom's voice was weak, slower than usual. "Honey, your dad fell. He's okay, not serious, don't worry, but he's not the same anymore." I flew home immediately. Dad sat in his armchair, leg in a brace, his eyes vacant. The man who once hauled bricks by the ton now needed help to stand. I looked around, pill bottles on the table, deep lines on Mom's face, tiredness in her eyes. And I noticed her ring finger. The wedding ring, after all these years, still hadn't been bought back. That night, I sat on the back porch. It was cold. The Wichita Falls sky was still full of stars. But I wasn't the same anymore. I cried. Not because life was hard, but because I had been so blind. They had given me everything, and I hadn't even noticed. Not because I was bad, but because I forgot that love doesn't always make noise. The next morning, I made breakfast, eggs and toast. Mom was surprised, Dad smiled. From then on, I called more often, visited more. I fixed the roof, bought supplies, and for the first time in my life, I said, "I love you," and slowly, something inside me began to heal. When my daughter Emma was born, that's when I truly understood. The sleepless nights, the unspoken worries, that kind of love, so deep your heart aches from just a tiny cough. One night I was rocking Emma to sleep. Mom stood at the doorway smiling. "You get it now, don't you?" she said. I nodded, tears falling. I finally understood. Love doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes love is a woman who gives up her dreams to work 2 jobs, just to raise her child. Sometimes love is a man who never says "I love you," but makes sure his kid never goes without. Sometimes love is 2 parents who give their entire lives, quietly, never asking for anything in return. If your parents are still around, call them, visit them, thank them, today. If they're gone, close your eyes, say their names. Let their love live on in you, like a rising tide swelling inside your heart, because behind every grown-up child, there are hands that once held on and never let go. This story is dedicated to every mother and father out there who have loved in silence, lived for others, and never asked for anything back. If this story touched you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone you love. Let's spread stories that matter. So love isn't something we have to look for, but something we simply remember. Thank you for listening.